The Deconstruction of Emily Dickenson. Can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. The Deconstruction of Emily Dickenson. The lecture had ended when I came in and the professor was answering questions. I do not know what he had been doing with her poetry, but now he was speaking of her as a victim of reluctant male publishers. When the questions dwindled, I put up my hand. I said that the ignorant meddling of the Springfield Republican and the hidebound response of literary men, and the gulf between the poetic wishfulness then admired and her own harsh knowledge, had let her see that her poems would not be understood in her time. And therefore, passionate to publish, she vowed not to publish again. I said I would recite a version of her vow. Publication is the auction of the mind of man. But before I could, the professor broke in. Yes, he said, the auction from augere, auctum, to augment, to author. Let's hear the poem. Several women who are at such a moment much more outspoken than men shouted. But I kept still and he kept going. In auctum, the economy of the signifier is split, revealing an unconscious collusion in the bourgeois commodification of consciousness, while our author says no, the unreified tax says yes. Yes. He kissed his lips together and turned to me, saying, now, may we hear the poem? I waited a moment for full effect. Without rising to my feet, I said, Professor, to understand Dickenson, it may not always be necessary to uproot her words. Why not first try listening to her? Loyalty forbids me to recite her poem here. No, I didn't say that. I realized she would want me to finish him off with one wallop. So I said, Professor, I thought you would welcome the words of your author. I see you prefer to hear yourself speak. No, I held back because I could hear her urging me to put outrage in my voice and substance in my argument. I stood up so that everyone might see the derision in my smile. Professor, I said, you live in Amherst at the end of the 20th century, where somebody coaxes out the bids on butter churns on a summer's Saturday. Forget etymology. This is history. In Amherst in 1860, auction meant the slave auction, you dope. Well, I didn't say that either. Although I've said them all many times in the middle of the night. In reality, I stood up and recited the poem. My voice gradually weakened, and the women who had cried out for the poem now looked as though they were thinking of errands to be done on the way home. When I finished, the professor smiled. Thank you. So at first, what some of us may have taken as a simple outcry, we all now see as an ambivalent, self-subversive text. As people got up to go, I moved into that sanctum within me where Emily sometimes speaks a verse and listened for a sign of how she felt, such as, thanks, sweet countrymen, for wanting to sing out of me after all that humbug. But she was silent.